Greetings, comrades. Okay, I'm here with the second part of the February Wraps and Wrecks. That is my wrap-up and recommendations. And the first one I'm going to get to is probably the one that I like the least. I had high hopes for this book. It's by Heather Vogel Frederick. It's called Absolutely Truly. It's got a lovely cover on it. But I ended up, it says it's a Pumpkin Falls mystery. So it's like a middle grade, and it's like a mystery. I'm assuming that maybe it's going to be a series. I had high hopes for this book, but there were things in this book that really irritated me. The writing wasn't bad, and the mystery was okay, but the problems about this book is about a young girl, and she's really tall for her age. That's her thing. She's 12, and she's really tall, and that's kind of like her cross to bear at the time. But it's kind of nothing compared to the other part. She has two older brothers and two younger sisters. Okay, her father was in the military, and he was injured. And he has moved the family from where they were living in Austin to New Hampshire, to the small town, Pumpkin Falls in New Hampshire, where he grew up. His mother and father owned a bookstore there, still do, and they want to retire and do some other things. And the bookstore's been in the family a long time, so they want to keep it there. So they convince him and his sister, who kind of like is a traveler around the world, has been her whole life, to come and try and run the bookstore. Now, so she has this thing of where she's having to deal with new kids and that kind of stuff, but, you know, her father's been in the military. They move around all the time, so she's kind of used to having to go to new places. She's a little disappointed because she thought they were actually going to settle down where they were, and they would have been until he was injured. And the problems that I had, the mystery is okay, and the characters are all right. The problem that I had was with the dad, who's a total jerk, and with how the main character is treated. You know, he's in the military. He's a career military guy. If you're in the military, you need to be prepared for the fact that you might get injured, and you might get hurt, and you might get killed. And, okay, so if that happens, if you get injured, you can have some time of adjustment. He's not really a great Santini kind of guy, but he's fairly close to it. And he gets offered a job in Austin where they're living, but he's not going to take it. Oh, no, he's, no, it might be charity. He's not going to do that. So he picks up, and his parents convince him, after complaining because everybody's ganging up on him, that he'll go to New Hampshire and he'll work to save the bookstore, which he doesn't do. He doesn't lift a finger to save the bookstore. All he does is whine and bitch and moan and complain, if he talks at all. Now, the two older kids are boys. They never get in any trouble. The two younger ones are just kind of not hardly there at all. She seems to be the one who's always putting her foot in it, and she makes a joke about that because her feet are so big because she's tall. And she's always saying things like, well, someone asked me, which no one ever does, and talking about how she's invisible to everyone else. Now, I think that some of those I kind of got the impression that when the author wrote them, she was trying to make them funny. They didn't come across that way to me. The dad is like this shadow that just casts a pall over everything in the story, and it makes it really hard to enjoy the mystery aspect of the story because of that, because you're just dreading the next scene that has anything to do with him. It's like, you're hurt, okay? You know what? You got a wife and 5 kids. Suck it up. You got a family to take care of here. But instead, he just sits around and broods and is quiet. The mom ends up going back to school full time because somebody's got to start earning some money. His pension isn't enough. They're not making enough money at the bookstore, so not only is she going to school full time, then she gets a part-time job, right? Everybody's walking on eggshells around this guy. Get over it. Get on with your life, He does start to change toward the end of the book, but I don't know. It just made the book very unenjoyable for me. It seemed a little too heavy-handed, and it seemed like there's one scene in there where the daughter makes a statement about something, and this is a statement that her family has used over and over again her whole life. Well, she says this statement, well, her dad gets all upset, it hurts his feeling, and her whole family gets mad at her. She's 12 years old, she made a mistake, cut her some slack, right? Do they? No, nobody does. So, she's not a bad character, but something about this book struck me as being a lot more revealing about the author than it was about the character. I'm probably not going to pick up anymore and read them. The mystery wasn't that good. It certainly wasn't good enough to make up for the negative feeling that I got overall about the book. The next book is Ophelia and the Marvelous Boy. And I think this is, I'm probably giving this 3 stars. The writing is fine on this. It's about a young girl. She has an older sister and her dad. Mom died. They really miss her. Her dad is like an expert in swords, so he goes to this town where there's this big sword exhibit that's going to be put on, right? Well, the backstory to this is that in another kingdom, in another world, there's this snow queen, okay? And there's a young boy, and he's been chosen by the wizards to be like the sword bearer for the sword and bring it to the person that can defeat the queen. But the story is kind of like she finds this boy who's been held captive by the Snow Queen, who is now in our world, and she tries to free him, and then they try to find the sword. She tries to find the sword, and she tries to find out who it is that's supposed to defeat the Snow Queen. And meanwhile, the Snow Queen's like doing this whole mind trip thing on her older sister and on her dad. It's not a bad book. It's pretty cool, you know, for the age group that it's meant for, which is, I'd say, elementary school. It's got a gorgeous cover on it. Oh, it's by Karen Foxlee, Foxlee. It's pretty good. It wasn't anything too outstanding, but you know, I give it 3 stars. I'd recommend it. The next book is Etiquette and Espionage by Gail Carriger. This is one I've been wanting to read some of hers for a while. It was good. It's an interesting premise where the girls that go to a finishing school, I think that's what it is. It's the first book of the finishing school series. But what they're really doing is teaching them to be like spies and assassins and things like that. So, you know, the young girl there, she's kind of a tomboy. She's always getting into trouble at home, and she gets sent to this finishing school and, you know, pretty much holds her own and tries to figure out what's going on there, something nefarious, and saves the day and that kind of stuff. The writing is really good. There's some good humor in it. The characters are really good without being over the top. You know, they're really interesting characters. And I would probably read the second one. I think there's like 3 or 4 of these. And I will probably go ahead and read the second one, but it's not, you know, it's not at the top of my list. I enjoyed it, but I wasn't, you know, I wasn't thrilled. I don't know. It was good. The next one is, it's a Wells and Wong mystery, Murder Most Unladylike. And this I'd take as the first, this is the first of a series, Girl Sleuth Mysteries. And I love mysteries, so I was very curious about this one. This one takes place in the early 30s. I'm not sure why it takes place in the early 30s. There didn't seem to be any reason in the book that I could see why it needed to be. But there are things I don't understand about English schools and stuff too. So maybe they're not like this anymore. But it's about these 2 girls, Daisy Wells and Hazel Wong. The book is told in first person by the character of Hazel Wong. She's from Hong Kong. Her father, when he was young, had gone to school in England, and he had no sons to send, so he decided to send his daughter because he just loved it. He thought it was great. So, okay, she goes there. She's Chinese. Definitely sticks out in the crowd of these, like, you know, kind of upper-class British kids, English kids. But the golden-haired Daisy Wells is like the daughter of a lord, but everybody loves her. She's really smart, and although she kind of pretends not to be, so she fits in. And but she's kind of the fair-haired child of the school, and she takes a shine to Hazel. She really likes her, and they get along really well. And they have these little things that they do, and they decide to form a detective agency. Well, as it turns out, one thing that happens is that one day Hazel Wong comes across a body, one of the teachers. She finds her in the gym, and she's dead. So she goes to get help, and when she comes back, the body's gone. This is an old tried and true kind of thing, but, you know, you allow the author one of those at the beginning to get the story going. So nobody believes her, but Daisy does believe her. So they have to try and figure out, one, what happened to her, and, you know, where's the body and what happened to her and who killed her. And it turned out to be a pretty good book. I really enjoyed it, and I would definitely read the others. I would give this, you know, 3.5 stars. 3.5 stars. It's a good solid read. 3.5, well, I'd say 3.5 to 4 stars. It's a good book, and I will definitely be reading more in the series of that. Robin Stevens is the author. Okay, next up is like an elementary, this is definitely an elementary school book, I think. It's book 1 in the Enchanted Emporium series. I love this cover, and it's called Suitcase of Stars by P.D. Bacalario. And I believe this may have been, I don't know if he wrote this in English. He's Italian, so it may have been translated. I actually don't remember. It's got some illustrations in it. It takes place in a small, English, I think it's Scottish. I think they're in Scotland. Oh God, now I can't remember. I think it's Scotland town. Yeah. Yeah, where kind of nothing ever happens, and there's a kid who's basically going to be failed because he's ditched school like 70 times during the year because he's just not interested. You know, he'd rather like go fishing, you know, and stuff like that. But this family moves into this old house, and they're setting up this emporium that sells magical things, like real magical things, not show stage magic, but real magical stuff. But somewhere out there, there's somebody nefarious who has evil designs and plans for them. But there's a young daughter there. He meets her, you know, chaos ensues and things like that. I liked it, and it was fun. And there is one weird thing about this book, though. And it's the Enchanted Emporium is the series, and the name of this particular one is Suitcase of Stars. Well, in the book, there is this suitcase that, in their investigations as to this and that and the other, they find this suitcase, not anything in it, but the cloth that lines it is like dark and has images of stars on it. That's it. There's like, he's looking for something else. That's not even what he's looking for. It doesn't have anything to do with the rest of the book. It's like, okay, this must be something maybe the publisher came up with, because this suitcase has nothing to do whatsoever with the story. It had been left out completely. It wouldn't have made any difference at all. So I'm not really sure why they named it Suitcase of Stars. It just didn't have anything to do with the story. It was kind of fun. A little bit of magical comes into this guy's world, and you know, he gets to grow up a little bit. So that was good, and I'm definitely going to read the other two in the series. The last one that I have is a book that why it took me forever to read this book, I do not know. But this was probably my favorite. This is my favorite of the month, and I really don't have to say a whole lot about it. It's The Invention of Hugo Cabret. You know, until I bought this book, I always thought it was Hugo Cabaret, which I think is kind of more fun. But it's by Brian Selznick, and, you know, everybody by now should know this book. I don't know why it took me so long to get around to reading it. And because I'd come across, you know, descriptions of his other books, I thought, well, I want to read this one first and see, because it's supposed to be really good. And it is. It's excellent. If you haven't read it, do. It goes really fast because it is mostly, it's like an illustrated novel, but I mean, it's a doorstop, okay? But a whole lot of it is images. There are these wonderful drawings. You can see a little bit here, like pencil drawings, and that's what the images are like throughout the whole book. They're all pencil drawings. Anyway, if you haven't read this, give it a shot. It's really cool. It is very cool. You can find out what it's about. You probably already know. Most people do. So that's my recommendations and wrap-ups, part 2 and final for the month of February. If you've read any of these books, let me know. If you have any suggestions for books that, you know, if I liked these or whatever, I might like those, let me know. And, oh, you know what? My name is Walker. And thanks to Jane over at Yes Miss Jane for pointing out that I never say what my name is. I never tell anybody. It's just, you know, I forget. So, anyway, my name is Walker. Thanks for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you'll check out some of these books if you like these elementary middle grade reads, okay? So, for now, that's it. Happy reading and happy trails.